Super Mario Brothers movie just came out in theaters this week. I truly enjoyed it. It surprisingly was pretty good. I hope we get a sequel because I think there's a lot of different elements you could do now, specifically because you've introduced the world and a lot of different elements to the Mario worlds and games that we've seen before. But in today's video, I want to dive in and talk about the top 10 most needed Nintendo games to be turned into movies next. These are the 10 that I think would be great, and I actually did specifically put these in order, so make sure to leave your thoughts down below in the comment section, and also make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more movie content on a daily basis. If you are a movie nerd and you need a safe place to just come and share your thoughts, you are in the right place. So thank you so much for clicking on this video. And as just a little bit of a disclaimer, this will not include any other Super Mario games such as Mario Galaxy, Odyssey, Paper Mario. I would love to see those get adapted. I think Galaxy is probably the one that they would probably shift towards personally, specifically in how like one of the scenes kind of touches on the galaxies. But if I'm being a little bit biased, just to kind of share that feeling, a Paper Mario movie, that's just my personal favorite, is Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. I love that game so much. But with that said, let's dive into this top 10. My number 10 is actually a game that I never truly got into. I don't love the gameplay personally, but the world, the creatures, everything about it is Pikmin. There's something about the Pikmin world that I think you could make a very enjoyable animated film, whether it's just this little astronaut guy coming to this planet and doing what he needs to do. And what does Illumination do great with that? They do the Minions movies, which is not for everyone. I personally like the Minions movies. They're not all great, but I could see that kind of style working with the Pikmin characters, and specifically I think you could really make a fun space adventure, sci-fi kind of universe within this. It's not my top 10 because I'm not sure exactly what kind of story you would do with it, but I'm envisioning all these different characters and the fun insanity that you could have with it, specifically throughout all the Pikmin games, which I've never beaten one, but I played every single one that's come out. Take that as what you will. My number 9, though, is a spin-off from this game that they introduced, and that's easily Donkey Kong Country. You go to the Kong world in this, and I wanted just instantly more of that. You get to see, spoiler alert if you haven't seen Mario yet, you get to see Diddy Kong, you get to see Dixie Kong, you get to see Cranky Kong, you get to see, of course, Donkey Kong, and there's so many other Kongs that you can meet. If you ever watched the Donkey Kong show back in the day, that was fun. I'm the big kahuna. Not great, but it's fun, and I would love to see them dive into the actual video game itself, because Donkey Kong Country for the Nintendo 64 is one of the best video games ever made in the entire world. And I love that game, and I think there's so much insanity and fun that you could have in the Kong's world that I wish they would have spent a little bit more time on it in the Mario movie. But do a spinoff. I think it would work. Honestly, my only issue with it is Seth Rogen. I understand. I saw your interview. You did this because you said, I don't do voices. I'll just talk it like Donkey Kong.
I was very clear I don't do voices. And if you want me to be in this movie, he's going to sound like me. And that's it.
I actually would hope that they would recast. That's just my only opinion. But other than that, I think it'd be cool to get a Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong kind of game where they just have to go out and save their world or something of that nature. Now, my number 8 is another one that's kind of like Pikmin, but I think you can do a really cool, unique element to it. And maybe this would work more as a show, but I think there's an idea for a movie out there, and that is Animal Crossing. Now, the reason that I look at Animal Crossing is, one, New Horizons for the Switch was my favorite Animal Crossing game. I've played every single one of these. I put countless hours into that game. I've not played it recently. Don't even want to dive into that damn game again because I'm just worried that I would get sucked back in, but it's an addicting one that has so many lovable characters that you can instantly fall in love with. But it's all a game about community and building community with certain characters, and specifically your world, and forming this island into itself. And I honestly think you could make an art. And looking at Illumination's films and what they've been able to do with, say, the Sing franchise, I'm not saying that I want these characters to start singing. We just need, of course, our famous little dog to do it. I think there's enough in there for Animal Crossing to actually make for a fun 90-minute animated feature about a community having to be built. You throw these characters on this island, or maybe, hell, make it a horror story. Make it like they have to defend each other on this island. I don't know. I just think there's a fun little family animated film that you can personally put there, and I think all the Animal Crossing characters are instantly iconic, and I would love to see it. I don't know exactly what the story would be. I don't get paid those big bucks, and personally, I don't want to sit here and try and think about it, but someone out there probably does. My number 7 is Kirby. Kirby is probably top 3 Nintendo characters for me. I love every single one of his games. I love jumping in as this guy who just eats everything. In Smash Brothers, he's one of my mains. And for me, Kirby game would be great. I loved the Kirby show back in the day.
Kirby has great power now.
Yeah? Well, who's the king around here, you or me?
Move it or lose it. It pains me to do this, sire, but I am afraid I must.
Hey, what's happening? We're going back!
Today, I've, again, like I mentioned, played every single Kirby video game. I just think there's so much fun to be had. And the last one that we just had kind of had like an element of Breath of the Wild from Legend of Zelda. And I think if you did this open, vast world with Kirby and all these different characters like Meta Knight, that would be awesome to see. Even King Dedede, there's so many fun elements in the Kirby franchise that I would love to see them actually dive into. And again, if we see what they did with the Super Mario Brothers movie, you can instantly do the same thing with Kirby and maybe even better. My number 6 is Fire Emblem. Now, point of context here. I have actually, again, like Pikmin, never fully beat a Fire Emblem game. They're just not my cup of tea for the style of gaming it is, but what I do get sucked into is actually reading about the lore, reading about all the different characters, and I think if Illumination wanted to take kind of a little bit of a gamble and break out of their mold, which I absolutely think they should, they have proven themselves in the animation department. I would love to see them do like a PG-13 animated film for Fire Emblem. I think the fan base would show up. I think it's great that we would get another fantasy world to kind of explore in and do well. And you have so many iconic characters, whether you are someone who just knows Fire Emblem purely because of Smash Brothers, or you've actually played the Fire Emblem games. But I think you could really build a foundation here with the characters, the world, the story, and overall, again, bring that fantasy element to animation. Now, this would also, I think, work in live action, but purely looking at just animation, we don't have enough fantasy films in that era, and I would absolutely love to see Fire Emblem do it. Jumping into my top 5 now is another movie that the genre typically is not in the animated style, but like playing this version that I'm going to throw up on in a second, this version would really work, and it's Punch-Out. I love the Punch-Out characters. I love all the different vibes they give. I even love the old school one with Mike Tyson. You could have a complete fun little cameo to that, because if you know Easter eggs, they did a great job in Super Mario Brothers. They could do a great job in here. But imagine you get like a Rocky type underdog story in animated form that could truly teach kids, but you could put some artistic visuals and style, just like thinking about the animation from Super Mario Brothers, but infusing that with Punch-Out and putting this nice story about an underdog in here just seems like something that could really work. And Again, I'm a big fan of the Rocky films. I would love the Creed films as well. You can take inspirations from those. I think it would kick ass. Coming back into the sci-fi realm now, let's jump into my number 4, which is Star Fox. We just had Top Gun. What do Star Fox games primarily have you doing? Playing as Star Fox, flying around, shooting shit out of the air. And it's great. You could even take inspirations from that one GameCube game, Star Fox Adventures, which is very underrated. Might be a controversial thing. I actually don't know if people hate that game as much, but I enjoy it. But it's not like the original Star Fox games. I love the flying around mechanics. I love shooting shit out of the sky. Nintendo just does not use this property enough, but the characters are fun. They're exciting. They're hilarious. And there's a nice little avenue to that. And again, a lot of films like to base themselves off different movies. And I think when you look in the kid realm, a lot of Nintendo games are made for kids. But a lot of families and a lot of adults get to go for nostalgic reasons. And you're looking at Star Fox, because honestly, when you look at all these games, arguably the only two that actually do have a story per se is Fire Emblem and Metroid, which I will, spoiler alert, be talking about in a second, and one other game, but they don't ever have the deepest stories to them. And I think you can actually add a little bit more of an avenue, and if you want to take like a Top Gun approach to Star Fox, you could make some incredible animation out of that. Speaking about my number 3, this is the only other spin-off that I absolutely think they should do from the Super Mario Brothers movie, and that's Luigi's Mansion. I even think they kind of set it up specifically in that opening scene of Luigi running away from the Dry Bones characters. There is a lot of fun elements to that, and again, borrowing from a different genre, Ghostbusters. You could have that whole vibe in there. You could have all these fun, wacky characters. Luigi's Mansion is such a fun game. That first one is such an iconic little thing that threw everything on its twist. And the fact that that was the premiere game from the GameCube, I think would be great to see how they would be able to adapt that into a movie format. Hour and a half, Ghostbusters with Luigi running around and Charlie Day doing it, trying to save Mario and Peach. I'm in. Jumping into my number 2, the one that I did spoil, which is Metroid Prime. This is one of the best Nintendo games ever made. That remaster, if you have not played it for the Switch yet, is actually phenomenal. I want this. I want this now. I want it yesterday. I'm shocked they have not done this. This is actually the one out of all these that I think could work in either live action or animation personally, typically because of the sci-fi element and the way that it works within Bounty Hunters, but looking at how the games play out, I do think animation is what fits it best. Speaking about how I mentioned PG-13 for Fire Emblem, I think this is another one that could easily be PG-13, and again, we don't have a lot of sci-fi animated films. Some of these just kind of fall into the real world or maybe have little elements to those, and we've definitely gotten animated sci-fi, but I'm thinking Star Wars Clone Wars big here for what you can do with a Metroid Prime movie. Seeing this bounty hunter, seeing Samus go out there, opening up this character and joining them, and seeing all the other bounty hunters in here, there's so much vast lore and world building that you could truly get, and the last few Metroid Prime games, which they have not made a lot, but like the 2 that came out on the Switch, the remaster, and then the other one that was a side-scroller, those were phenomenal, and I would love to dive back into those worlds. Again, Samus, freaking incredible character. I love that character design, and I think Metroid would be awesome. My number 1 is pretty much the most obvious one. I think everyone's going to probably pick this one as well as their number 1, and that's The Legend of Zelda. You have so many different art designs and visual inspirations that you could truly take for Legend of Zelda that I don't even know which one they would do. You have the Wind Waker brand, you have, of course, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Breath of the Wild, of course, Tears of the Kingdom, which is coming out very soon. You have all these different artistic styles that you could formulate into animation. This could be a show where different studios take on the Legend of Zelda brand and formulate into their own ideas. You could give it to Pixar for one season. You could give it to, of course, like an anime studio for one season. You could give it to Illumination. This is, again, something that I would love to see, but if they are going to do it, I could see them more going to the Wind Waker route or Breath of the Wild route for the animation itself. Legend of Zelda is my favorite Nintendo franchise. That's why it's my number 1. Every single one of their games are honestly pretty damn flawless. No matter what different art design you pick, Twilight Princess is my personal favorite. You could have that fantasy aspect. You could dive into the PG-13 realm. You could dive into the PG world. There's humor to be had. There's so many very notable and recognizable characters. Link, Zelda, Ganondorf, you name it, but as well as other supporting casts that come from all these different games. It would be a vast one to pick. Unlike Mario, Link doesn't really jump into these different worlds. It's just you're set into this world, you go into the story. There's not really canon to which kind of goes. There is a timeline, I understand, but everything is so kind of split apart that you just enjoy yourself for that fantasy world that you're going to. And there's so many different ideas you could do with Legend of Zelda that it frustrates me that I'm not in this industry that I could like pitch these ideas, because I think Nintendo has like a gold mine when it comes down to a Legend of Zelda show, movie, whatever it may be, that it would be awesome. My top 10 Nintendo games that absolutely should be movies. Thank you so much again for watching this. Make sure again to hit that like, subscribe button, share your thoughts down below. And of course, until next time, stay classy. And as well, I want to give a little bit of shout out. If you like video games, go check out my video game channel. We talk about video games over there at least on a weekly basis. Thank you so much and stay classy.